On today's show, Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans get a big win against the LA Clippers over the weekend, a potential first-round playoff preview, why the Pelicans should be confident about a matchup with the Clippers in the first round, and why New Orleans should be taken seriously this postseason. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive, because LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process even easier. They just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Joining us now is the best beard on the network, the host of Locked On Pelicans, Jake Madison. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts, and on YouTube, just search Locked On Pelicans. Jake, a likely first-round playoff preview Friday night as the Pelicans got a big win against the LA Clippers, who were, albeit with minus James Harden, but still a big win nonetheless, 112-104 behind 34 points from Zion Williamson. What did we learn about the Pelicans from this win Friday night?
Yeah, they figured out like the best version of themselves, and that's point Zion. This is something they went away from earlier on in the year. They tried to make their offense a little bit more Brandon Ingram focused, at times CJ focused, but they're finally starting to just put the ball in the hands of their best player in Zion, and you're seeing what he's doing. He was fantastic in that game, basically unstoppable, 34 points shooting, making 2/3 of his shots, getting to the line, dishing out assists, and you're seeing an energized version of him too. You're seeing him compete on the defensive side of the ball. You're seeing some blocks that we haven't seen from his time at Duke. So this is just kind of the Pelicans figuring out who they are, what works best, and this is called just peaking at the right time, essentially.
Look, much has been made about kind of the fit, right, in the past between Zion and Brandon Ingram, and even at times, CJ McCollum, and how that triumvirate kind of works together. Do you notice at all, at any times a fall off or a drop off in play from BI, from CJ, when the Pelicans do go to more of that point Zion style offense?
I mean, somewhat, right? Yeah, I think both of those players are starting to learn that right now it's going to be a Zion-centric offense, and you need to fit and work around that. The next night, on the second night of a back-to-back in the win over the Portland Trailblazers, CJ scored 30. So he's very capable of doing this. He's a great three-point shooter. He's one of the best in the league this year. You're seeing him work more off ball and be very comfortable kind of being the third guy on the team, at times the fourth guy, when you factor in Trey Murphy as well on offense, and he seems okay with that. I think it takes a moment to kind of find your rhythm as more of a spot-up shooter than, say, a pull-up shooter or a point guard for CJ, but he's definitely kind of proven that this year, and he's been very reliable overall for the Pelicans. For Brandon Ingram, it's a little bit of adjustment, right? Because this is a guy who likes the ball in his hands, wants to go and get into his spots from mid-range, take those shots, but that condenses the court, that kind of kills your spacing. They need him to take more threes. In the game against the Clippers, he took 4. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's better than like the 1 he'll take a game. So I think you're seeing him kind of learn that right now I'm not the primary scoring option. I need to work more as a facilitator. I think he had 7 assists in that game. His assist numbers have been up all year, playing off of Zion. And I think when you see them in this kind of game, it gives you hope that pairing, which the Pelicans explored breaking up this past offseason, but I think it gives them a lot of hope that they can do well in a playoff series and that you can keep these two guys as your core going forward.
Now, after that win against the Clippers Friday night, the Pelicans are now 3-1 in their season series against the Clippers. How important was that win for New Orleans, Jake? Now just a game and a half back of LA for that 4th seed in the Western Conference and potentially home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, look, I think it was a big game, right? There's no getting around that. Beating that team, winning the season series 3-1 is important. It's a team you're chasing in the standings. It keeps pressure on the Los Angeles Clippers. This is a team that, though they haven't done their load management that we usually see from them in years past, probably would like to get a little bit more rest for Kawhi Leonard, for Paul George at the end of the season and have the fourth spot or even the third spot locked up. But now they can't because of the pressure the Pelicans put on them there. But it also could come down to this final game of the regular season. Winning that season series now means the Pelicans don't need to finish one game up over the Los Angeles Clippers, right? If we were talking, hey, 1.5 games back, well, if you want to make sure you get home court, it's really 2.5 games, right? But not when you win that season series and have that tiebreaker here. And that gives the Pelicans a little bit more margin for error, though they have a tougher schedule than the Clippers. But beyond all of that, right? As you said in the open here, this is going to be the 4-5 seed, it looks like. One of them will have home court, one of them won't. But the Pelicans feel probably pretty good going in that even if they are the 5th seed, this is a team that they match up well with in a series like this, and they can win no matter which seed they are.
Which of those matchups are the ones that kind of inspire a lot of confidence? Because that was going to be my very next question, is regardless of who is the 4 or the 5 seed, it looks like we are barreling towards a first round playoff matchup of the Pels and Clippers in the first round as the 4-5 matchup eventually. And when you look at just the season series, at least, Zion's averaging 25, 5 and 5 against the Clippers so far this regular season. Now, I know the regular season is a different beast than the playoffs, but when I look at these two teams, I feel like the Pelicans actually match up incredibly well with the Clippers. They've got wings like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy to throw it, at Kawhi, at PG. And then you look at the Clippers, and I just don't think they really have anybody. Very few teams do, but I don't think they have anybody that you can throw at Zion to slow him down.
Right. Like, I think the key to this series, and like this dude's going to get run out of Los Angeles, is Zubac, right? Like, he was horrible against the Pelicans on Friday. He's been horrible when he's played against them this season. Like, he just doesn't do well in a matchup with Zion. As you said, there's very few guys that really do match up well when Zion's kind of playing at his peak here. And New Orleans just basically like gets Zion going downhill right at Zubac, and like there's nothing he can do. And so if he's not playable in this series, that's a big advantage for New Orleans, because I do think their center position of Jonas Valanciunas, of Larry Nance Jr. isn't ideal for what they want. Valanciunas isn't a good defender. Larry Nance Jr. is a little bit undersized. I think that can hurt them. But here, the center spot, because Zubac is a weakness for the Clippers, doesn't actually do that. So I think this is an ideal first round matchup. Them and even the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think, do a very good job. They can do a very good job against, and then you throw in a guy like Herb Jones, who should be on the all defensive first team, not second team, first team. That block he had on Paul George was just kind of insane, that he then turned into a dunk on the fast break. When you have a guy that can shut down one of their two better wing players in Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, that gives you a huge advantage here in New Orleans. Brandon Ingram's playing very, very good defense. I'm about to talk about that on Locked On Pelicans on the Monday episode. So when you look at this defense and what they're capable of doing, I think it limits a lot of the strengths that the Clippers have.
Jake, there are a lot of unproven teams, kind of in the top of the West this year. You've got the Wolves, the Thunder, the Pelicans are one of them. Why should this New Orleans team be taken seriously this year?
Look, I don't think they should be taken seriously as like a title contender. I think they're a little bit of a ways away, maybe not a ways away, but they're not there this season. But when you have Zion playing this well, like, good luck. Brandon Ingram is a guy that can get you buckets, and I think kind of a playoff atmosphere. The way refs call games, teams are going to give you those mid-range shots, try and take away the threes, try and take away the shots at the rim. That's a guy that really does exceed. You have CJ McCollum, who's been there before, and then there's some depth here, and I think that's both good and bad for New Orleans. Trey Murphy off the bench has been really great. Najee Marshall has been good for this team this season too. Jose Alvarado is a pest and proved it 2 years ago against the Phoenix Suns in the first round. There's a lot of guys here that you look at and you don't see a huge weakness on this Pelicans team. I don't think that gets them into the conference finals or the NBA finals, but it definitely means they can take a first round series and be trouble for some team in the second round.
Can the Pelicans ultimately catch the Clippers and claim the 4th seed and possible home court advantage in the playoffs? How will New Orleans and LA match up in this postseason? Because, hey, look, it might shake out differently, but I think we're getting a 4-5 matchup between LA and New Orleans. You're going to have us cover for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Pelicans. Jake, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.